Who are you? What are you? Where are you from? Questions that should have concrete answers but lend themselves to more fluid interpretations. And what's more fluid than poetry? If you didn't know, April is National Poetry Month, and our next storyteller is all about it. Please welcome Jonathon Rios.
I grew up in East LA, Montebello to be exact, where the stresses of life weighed heavily inward. I remember feeling trapped. Exposure to what's possible was capped. Just being able to pay the bills was thought of as being apt, but you can see that being a cog in the wheel left people feeling zapped, crapped on, forgotten about, chapped pride, your life dreams set aside, scrapped. It's no wonder that you turn around one day and all of a sudden someone snapped and think nothing of a kidnap. At least that's what happened to me as a young chap. Seriously, I was kidnapped. And my mom saved me as she's been known to do in her own unusual way. That time, it was by running someone over with a Porsche. But that's another story for a different day. We never had much growing up, but somehow, at least once a year, my mom was always able to borrow a pickup truck. And she'd collect some of the apartment kids to take us to Venice Beach, to expose us of the true variety of what humanity had to offer. 4 Mexican kids bouncing around in the back of an old school camper shell pickup truck that had shag carpeting and smelled like wet dog, while Brenton Wood was casting a spell on me. Once we get within a mile of the water, we'd start looking for a spot, because my mom would be damned if she was going to spend half of our beach money on parking. And as soon as the engine cut off, we'd explode out of the back of the pickup truck like we were trying to escape from being kidnapped, which admittedly looks very similar, but in actuality feels way different. And so would begin our glorious speed march to the sand, Nirvana, the great equalizer. Because once we got to Venice Beach, it didn't matter where we were from, it didn't matter how much my mom made. The only 2 things that mattered were that we were true to ourselves and that we accepted everyone for who they truly were. And who was I? I was raised by blacks, schooled by whites. My mama was adopted, so I never felt right in my own skin. That's how I translated my culture from Mexican to in my own skin. I learned Spanish from hip hop. This is for la raza, mentirosa. Break dancing on cardboard. Entiendo mucho, pero no hablo bien. El queso es viejo, ¿dónde está el baño? Yes, I drink horchata. Yes, my mama threw chanclas. I had a light-skinned cousin named Mandy. We all call her Blanca. I know enough to put cilantro on menudo. Culture, cilantro, cilantro, culture. I know what they smell and taste like, but I don't know how they were grown. When I was a young lad, my mom and I couldn't afford, had to grab a roof over our head. So instead, she begged and pled to have at least a bed to rest her baby boy's head that night, because I had school in the morning. My mom and I were homeless, but know this, sometimes life happens, you just can't control this. My mama protected me with a tent of love and acceptance. Because I had that, we still lived some semblance of normalcy. Our circumstances didn't define we. This is from my mama, who visibly showed me to respect myself, because if I don't, no one will. Skid Row was temporary because we connected to community, grasped the extended hand, and continued striving just to be the best me I can manifest to be. When I started making my way into society, her sense of propriety made her step aside as she started to hide from me. Didn't want to detour the rise in me, so I'd pick her up on the corner of Skid Row just to dine with me. We'd share a meal which allowed us to heal. It still seems so surreal. She'd always end with her normal spiel. It's okay, mijo. Don't worry about me. Just focus. I always thought that was bogus. but she did it out of love. It took years for me to know this. Despite my protest, I drop her off on the corner with some leftover steak and sodas. I was walking down the street the other day when a homeless gentleman looked my way and said a simple, "Hey." I said the same and then asked his name, and unexpectedly his eyes, they started to rain. He said it had been a year and a half since someone asked him his name. It was Peter, by the way, and we hugged. And I held him tightly to remind him even slightly that I see his light in me. Let us not ostracize, but look into each other's eyes and mutually realize that we're all human beings with lives to live. So give hope. We are the city of angels, not the city of angles, wrangling up tent cities like cattle, herding them to their new pasture next exit off the 10 in Alvarado. Thank you for never losing hope in me. I will never lose faith in you. Thank you.
Good looking at him. Thank you. Thank you. Jonathon, thank you.